Lords of the Fallen could be the answer to your Elden Ring Withdrawal. A few weeks ago I was lucky enough to play the upcoming Souls-type game Lords of the Fallen at a preview event thanks to Craze Gaming, who I attended on behalf of. This game has many of the elements that I love about Elden Ring, the basic structure of a Souls game, challenging boss fights, beautiful level design and a vast array of different ways to challenge those boss fights and other enemies. But it's not just another Souls game, it has a unique feature that isn't just a gimmick. The entire game exists as two worlds layered on top of each other, the first being Axiom. Axiom is where you start out and is your default realm. The other realm is Umbral, which is like Hell, or a world of the dead. You go to Umbral whenever you die, and basically get a second chance before true death. You can also glimpse into this world from Axiom with the help of your lantern, or enter the world by choice through what is essentially putting an end to yourself. There's a lot more to Axiom and Umbral, but before I go too deep, let's talk about the things you already know you like about Souls games that can be found in Lords of the Fallen. Leveling is simple and what you'd expect from a Souls-like. Each level is an attribute point, and that's it. For many gamers used to talent trees and unlocking skills, this may seem a little anticlimactic, but the glory of this one-point attribute system is in its simplicity, and the more simple the base, the more complex ways you can customize. You level up by killing mobs to obtain Vigor, which are basically your runes. Vigor can be spent at a vestige to level up. It's also a currency, and as you might expect, if you die for that second time, you drop that Vigor. If you die fully again before picking it back up, then that Vigor is lost, regardless of how much it is. So best to use it to level and such regularly. It also seemed like at one point the mob that killed me got the Vigor, requiring me to kill it to get it back. This was just a standard mob, and during the Pieta boss fight I just picked it up before continuing. If I'm not losing my mind, that is quite a cool feature. Next are classes. You can be whatever you want to be, a flame-dealing sorcerer, a sword-wielding vagabond, a priest, and the class you choose at the beginning is just the starting point. It will determine your starting attributes and gear, but that's it. Where you take that character afterwards is completely up to you, you aren't locked in. There are also respec items in the game, allowing you to redistribute your attribute points if you feel like changing things up a bit. There are 9 starting classes, which give a good idea of the variety of intended playstyles. You can be a knight, a berserker, an all-rounder, a dexterous spear wielder, a ninja, a ranger, a cleric, a sorcerer, or a condemned, which is basically the wretch, for those who want that true soul start where the only weapon you have is half of a barrel and no armour. Now let's talk weapons. Weapons work like how you'd expect from this kind of game. Each weapon has attribute requirements to be able to use effectively. These will largely be intuitive, a sword needing a bunch of strength and maybe a little dexterity, a huge heavy weapon needing a whole lot of strength, a dagger, bow or thin-bladed weapon needing primarily dexterity, and so on. Though there are of course unique weapons with less standard requirements and uses. There are a total of 142 melee weapons, just melee. Fist weapons, short, long and grand swords, axes, grand axes, hammers and grand hammers, spears and polearms. No katanas for those curious. There are also throwing knives, grenades, javelins, bows with many types of arrows doing elemental and other damages, crossbows and catalysts. That last one, catalysts, are your route to spells, of which there are 59. While I have numbers for weapons and spells, I don't have detailed data on what they all do. This is a preview, so they aren't going to give me the game files. But for spells, there are 3 primary schools: Holy, Fire and Necromancy, which are labelled as Radiant, Rogar and Umbral. As well as the requirements to use, there is also attribute-based damage scaling, a very familiar concept for Souls anything. This essentially means that each weapon has a rating for at least one attribute that it scales with. The higher the rating, the higher the effectiveness of the weapon based on your attributes. So if you have a whole lot of strength, and your strength weapon has a very nice A-rated strength scaling, then you are going to get some really nice synergy with that weapon, resulting in rather nice damage. Combat is highly skill focused. Lords of the Fallen is very much a get good scrub kind of game. One thing I was particularly curious about and happy when I saw it was parrying. There are parrying mechanics as well as blocking, dodge rolling, stamina management, etc. From my limited time playing the game, parrying felt a lot easier than in Elden Ring, but a fair bit harder than in Valheim. It was a primary tactic I used for defeating one of the preview bosses, which was a fight I really enjoyed. This is Pieta. Pieta has been all over the gameplay footage already shown for Lords of the Fallen, usually paired with a comparison to Crucible Knights. Pieta wields a holy sword of light, kind of like a lightsaber. She starts off with a limited, simple set of moves, some sword flourishes, an AoE ground pound type magic attack, and a rather dangerous long-range holy beam attack. This was a fight I found it best to stay close in. largely to avoid that long range attack, otherwise rolling through the ground AoE and parrying those flourishes. Then, in classic RPG stylings, she enters a second phase where she sprouts wings and flies around the battlefield, making it much harder to get to her. She continues with more aggressive flourishes, the beam and the pound, but now also covers half the arena with seriously concerning area damage, summons ethereal Valkyries to swoop after you, and more. It felt up to standard, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. There was another fight not long after her, however, that I truly despised, or at least I should say it's the boss itself that I wanted to taste the ground. It's this pyramid head looking assho here. She was seriously tough. I had 9 goes at her and I couldn't get her down. And the worst part of my ego, she's not even a proper boss. She's a mini-boss. A mini-boss with 2 phases, adds an aggression that would turn even Travis Willingham sheepish. Beyond the bosses, the in-between is of course filled with a variety of different mobs, some weak, some super annoying, and some extremely tanky. While in those areas you'll definitely take note of the design. It's that epic mix of extreme beauty and extreme ugly you might hope for and somewhat expect. A pristine face is a rarity, but formally pristine marred with the grotesque is common. Along with that you have glorious landscape backgrounds and highly detailed levels, ruinous yet beautiful structures in Axiom, and then there's Withdrawal, filled with rot, monsters and an uncomfortable feeling that something is always watching you. Let's get back to that whole 2 realms thing. Is it a gimmick or is it an interesting new feature that adds to the gameplay? Firstly, these 2 realms occupy the same space as each other. You start in the world of the living. From there you can peek into the world of the dead around you by lifting up and shining your special lantern. If you die, whether it be by an enemy or your own hand, you transition into this death realm. Once there you are going to find things a little more difficult, more mobs and more aggression. The longer you stay in Withdrawal, the realm of the dead, the worse it gets. And it gets really bad. In order to get back to Axiom, the realm of the living, you must find a vestige. Vestiges are basically campfires, a place you can level up and such. These can be found in the world around you. You can also make one yourself in certain places using a finite resource. Interacting with the vestige will also fill your health charges as well as reset the mob spawns. Just from this you may wonder whether there's any point to transitioning to Withdrawal, other than as a second chance at living. And there is. The most obvious reason is progression. You cannot complete this game only going through Axiom. Sometimes you'll reach a block, requiring you to transition to Withdrawal to get past and continue. However, Withdrawal doesn't just exist in those places, it's everywhere. And it was confirmed to me that Withdrawal not only has unique loot available, but also hidden secrets only accessible via exploration through it. If done well, this could be a very cool concept. One of the huge things I absolutely love about Elden Ring is that there are many areas in that game, that they went to great effort to build, stunning areas like the Siofra River, that they also went to great lengths to hide from you. Usually a dev studio will not just want you to find something and see everything they have gone to exceptional efforts to make, but do their best to ensure you do see it by guiding you, often forcibly. Elden Ring doesn't do that. Very few players will ever see everything in Elden Ring. It would take considerable effort and time spent checking Reddit for secrets. I don't believe that Lords of the Fallen will have the extent of Elden Ring secrets, however I don't think it's right to expect that. Lords of the Fallen isn't an open world game, but if it has that aspect at all, it gets me going and wanting to explore. On the note of linear versus open world, it is stated as being a semi-linear experience. I still don't quite get that enough to explain it properly myself, so I'll paraphrase what was sent to me. Even if there is a recommended path, there's no order required for anything, so players can explore around the areas at their own pace. They can clean beacons or not, resulting in different endings. There are many side paths that can be explored or ignored, including connections between levels. There is a linear aspect, but players have enough freedom to choose their own paths. The semi-linear nature was also compared more to Dark Souls 1, which I've not played too much of, but I could most understand that as being a central location with many paths webbing out. You could go right to a hellscape you are not at all prepared for, regret it, and then maybe check out that recommended path to get a few levels from mobs you can actually defeat at your level, then maybe try that hellscape again. There is a central hub with friendly NPCs and vendors. An interesting answer I got that was related to this when asking about New Game Plus support was that there is indeed a New Game Plus feature, and as well as all of the usual mob and boss scaling with resistances and damage, a huge difference is that all of the vestiges in the world that you discovered are no longer there. There is a single one in the central hub, and the only way to get more is by creating them yourself. This basically makes an extra difficulty that isn't simply extra damage. You can get anywhere physically but must map your own vestiges for convenience. My overall impression of Lords of the Fallen is that it has the potential to be that more you were hoping for when you got hooked on the Souls-like experience, but not just a carbon copy, the same base structure with its own elements worthy of remembering. It's way too early to say this is an amazing game, but what I've seen has me wanting more. If you have any questions, please comment them below and I'll do my best to answer them and add them to the pinned comment as a bit of an FAQ. I learned way more detail than I could realistically put in this video that is more of a summary, and if you want it, I'm more than happy to make more in-depth looks at specific aspects. Have a fantastic day.